What happens when a mild-mannered stuntman becomes a doctor? Well, he becomes almost impossible to get back on a podcast. Getting to work is the podcast of NCI Works. I'm John Spencer from Starved Rock Media, and we finally made it work with Dr. Brian Hite. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You're a busy guy. I know summers are busy, especially when you got family and all sorts of stuff going on there. And you kind of had a cool stunt gig just drop into your lap recently too, didn't you?
I did, yeah. There's never been any. Well, there's been one TV show in Nashville. It's called Nashville. There have been very, very few, bigger budget movies that have shot here. But all of a sudden, we ended up with a TV show called 911 Nashville, and and it's here, and it's here for the next 9 months. They started shooting in June, and it stars Chris O'Donnell. And as of right now, I'm doubling him. So it's a fantastic job for me.
Yeah, a very cool gig. That's awesome. And it had to have been a lot of fun so far.
Yeah, we've had a good time. I've only doubled him a couple of times, but I've been able to work on the show a few other times, doing some driving things and uh, chasing a child who started out flying a kite, and then the kite flew her. So that
Oh,
was that was a fun episode.
wow.
Can't wait for that to come out.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that. And we can only see you from, about mid chest up, but we're assuming no casts, no anything.
No, everything's working.
Good to hear it. Welcome back. We want to talk today. We want to have some fun. That's what we try to do. While we share some information that can hopefully help you manage your business and your team. And one of the topics that came up, and I know at least one person watching is a vocal opponent of these mandated fun group activities. Morale culture, you hear a lot of that bounced around, and yeah, it's a huge thing, right?
It is a huge thing. Yeah, it's a. I'm in the same camp as the person you're referring to. I can't stand that stuff either. It is something that has always. I mean, forced group activities have always been the bane of my existence. In school, it's happened every now and then. As you know, on my own in stunts, it doesn't really happen that much. I mean, people just come into work and then you go home.
Yeah.
But when I was working for the Army, I was work. That's what I call it, a real job, where I had to actually go in there every single day and work with the same people over and over again all the time. And every now and then, yeah, that's what they'd come up with some kind of group thing. All right, we're going to do some team bonding, some team building. The Army did it too. They tried to come up with different things to make the unit stronger, which is a worthy goal. I mean, don't get me wrong. The objective is fantastic. The you want a strong, cohesive team that trusts each other and really values each other's presence. But I've always disagreed with making that happen through forced group activities. So yeah, I'm excited to talk about this topic too.
Hey, let's have an employee picnic and talk about it. Or maybe we can get together for some axe throwing, which seems like maybe the worst idea ever. Maybe it's just me.
Well, you better make sure that the team's happy already before you take them where they're throwing axes. That can
All right.
cause all kinds of problems.
So we all agree that morale is essential to having a high performing team. You really, really need it to fire on all cylinders. And that these forced group management planned, hey, they're horrible. Just don't work. So, what do you recommend, Dr. Height, on how we can accomplish that goal without forcing this stuff on people?
Well, I mean, I think just based on what you said, there are a couple things that come to mind. You said, morale, we need to have morale high in order for the teams to function well. I think I would replace morale with motivation for individuals. And we've spoken about that already on your podcast. And if people want to know more, we spoke in depth about it. I refer them back to that one.
Yep.
But from an individual standpoint, I think motivation is critical. From a group standpoint, if you start talking about how the team itself is coming together to perform, I would just call that strong group cohesion. I would call that trust in the people that you work with. Those are some of the constructs that I would talk about. And the I guess if you go back to that motivation episode, we talked about basic psychological needs, one of which was relatedness, is relatedness. And what that is a sense that I am a valued and accepted member of a group, that I matter. And not just because of the number of widgets I can make, but because of who I am as a person. I bring something unique to this situation and I'm valued as a result of that. So that need for relatedness, an individual need, is shared by everybody. So that's really where this the cohesion comes in, and where the problems with these forced activities lie, because forced by definition we're being made to do this thing, and people just don't respond well to that. Again, going back to the motivation discussion, controlled sources of motivation, rewards, punishment, shame, guilt, ego, these are forms of motivation that are sources of motivation. People absolutely are motivated
Sure,
by these things,
sure.
but they can have substantial problems associated with them. So we want people to choose their own outcomes, their own activities as much as possible, and that's where the forced engagement with these group activities, that's really the biggest problem with it. If you can get people to choose to come in, if you have people pick and decide that what they'd like to do is take part in this thing with some other people, then it's going to work out great. But if you make people, then that's a big problem.
So the key word there is forced, obviously. And if we wanted to go axe throwing, as long as everybody was on board with it, and you made sure that nobody, had some severe hate for anybody, you were okay, right?
Well, I you're better. You're better, because the problem is that some people are going to choose to not go. So if you say, you know what, we're going axe throwing, show up or don't, it's completely up to you. Some people are going to go, some people aren't, and the people who are going to go are gonna they're going to talk, they're going to interact, they're going to get to know each other a little bit better. They'll get to be a little bit more comfortable with each other, maybe. And the people who aren't there, they're going to miss out. They're not going to see what's happening or experience. It's like my daughter, she's 12, and she got so upset that she wasn't able to go to this sleepover at somebody's house because I don't know, she had a climbing competition or something. And her reasoning was, I'm going to miss out on all this stuff, and they're going to be telling stories on Monday, and I'm not going to know any of the stories, and I'm just going to be off to the side. And that's the danger of having these activities where you have a select group of people who opt in, they go have a great time, they do the stuff, and the other people are left out. So the key is to really try to, from a leadership standpoint, really open up the possibilities for other things that speak to and are really comforting for those other people. And you know what? A better way of thinking about this is introvert extrovert. I don't know about better, but another way of thinking about it is introvert extrovert. Some people really gain energy from interaction with other people, with groups. They like it. That's something that fuels them, and they readily go toward those activities, whereas other people, they're not that way. They draw energy from alone time, not necessarily isolation. Introverted people are misunderstood. They don't want to just be by themselves all the time. They want to have friends. They want to have close friends. They want to have meaningful discussions. They want to be part of something. It's just if that something is a big loud group of people all talking about random surface level stuff, that's probably not going to be very it's not going to be very inviting to the introvert. Whereas if you were talking about something specifically related to work activities, for example, one of the best ways of creating these the bonding moments is to ensure that everybody's on the same page about what you're trying to achieve. Shared goals, shared values that are bought into by everybody. That's one of the best ways of doing it, because then you've got, not only is everybody on the same page about what direction we're going, they're on the same page about how we're going to get there. And discussions can happen around those things. And that's incredibly valuable. And one way of that manifests is through just every now and then just sit down, like, okay, what are we about? What is our mission statement? What are our values? What do those values look like lived out in the work environment, in the workplace? How do I know if other people around me are living out the values that we as a group have decided are important? So that's an excellent way of creating an environment where it's work related. It's not completely, because that's the other pushback that you get from people sometimes. Like, look, man, you've got 8 hours of my day. I've agreed to that. That's where we're going. But after that, I've got my life. I've got my kids. I've got my things. I'm not interested in any of this. And even if you put the team building activity during work hours, the question's still going to come up. Okay, but what's the relevance of this? Why am I wasting my time? What, I've got other things to do. How does this even relate at all to the mission and vision that you guys say is important? And the answer
So
that'll come back is because we're a group, we're a team, we got to get together.
yeah,
But there's a problem in the sense that, again, we're not coming together around shared things. If we can come together around the shared values, shared vision. For example, one thing that the Army does very, very well is an after action review, an AAR they call it. After any training exercise, after anything that happens, they all get together and they talk about what was good, what was bad, what worked, what didn't. What do we need to keep? What do we need to change? And that, everybody from private up to general is expected, and this is an expectation, is expected to speak up in those meetings and to say what they think very honestly and in a very straightforward, in a respectful way, but in an honest and straightforward way as well.
right.
That keeps things focused on what are we doing here at work. It allows everybody a voice, and if we can frame those discussions in terms of those values and beliefs and visions and goals that we all share, then it becomes, that activity in and of itself becomes a team building activity, a bonding moment.
Yeah, that's great. We have talking about introverts and extroverts, to go back to that for a second. It's almost like you've been inside of a radio station, and I know a lot of places are like it, but we have radio people who, believe it or not, tend to be fairly introverted, can sit in a studio in front of a microphone. They're the only person there and talk to, you know, potentially thousands of people, but just wilt into a corner when, you get into that business after hours and there's just a bunch of, people small talking. And then you have our salespeople, which are definitely extroverts out and about, and the rest of us, kind of fall in the middle. So you see that at work. We found the one thing that works okay for us most of the time is, we'll do a staff meeting a lot of times when most people are available. And again, it's not mandatory, but we hope you show up. And we offer food because most people enjoy food, and a little camaraderie. And just on a basic level, we've had some success with that. But doing the follow up, that's something that we have, done over time, and I can see how, if you do that consistently, it really could create open dialogue and buy-in from the entire team.
Yeah, and just starting small, like you just said. Let me just feed you.
Yeah.
Tell me what you like to eat. I will make sure it's there. Just let me feed you. That's a great place to start, and just getting people in the door. Another thing and this is going to be from personal experience. I don't know that I've ever come across any literature around this, but just for me personally, because I'm like you, what you just described is me. I will stand up in front of thousands of people and talk. I'll get in front of a camera, do something that I know is going to go out to millions of people. I will sit here and talk to you that I know hundreds of people are going to listen to, and I will have no problem whatsoever. You drop me in the middle of a party of some kind of social thing that I have to go to, particularly, oh my goodness, if it's a networking event where I'm expected to go, like, introduce myself and tell my story to all the people, that creates a level of anxiety inside me that I just hate. And so I avoid those situations. So I completely understand where you're coming from with that. And I think that in that vein, maybe even just breaking down some of the tendencies that introverted people have, and maybe some of the differences might even be useful. For example, introverted people, we already talked about the energy dynamics, where they get energy from, but and a little bit about the depth and breadth. That the introverted people tend to like very close friends that they can have deep, meaningful conversations with. That they're not really so much, typically. This is very, I don't want to overgeneralize, but in general, they tend to gravitate more toward deep topics that you can really sink your teeth into, rather than just, what's the latest thing on social media, or who was the latest person who won a baseball game or whatever. They're just not, that's not a thing that really interests them. Sensory sensitivity. This is something that I don't think a lot of people are aware of, that introverted people tend to be more sensitive to just sensory stuff, be it light, be it sound, be it touch, whatever it might be. And so these big group activities that tend to be very loud are something, it's just off-putting because the sensory input is just too much for them.
Mhm.
And then for everybody, just the autonomy and control piece of being able to choose where we are, where we want to go, and what we want to do, and with whom we want to interact, and on what level, and for how much time. All of that can be compromised in these situations too. So that's just a little bit more about the introverted people and maybe why they don't do as well in some of these well-intentioned events that
Right.
get put together
Yeah.
through the organizations.
Like you said initially, starts off with a good purpose, but and again, what we found over time, everyone's most valuable asset, it's their time, right? So,
Well, that's the most valuable resource overall, I would argue anyway, because it's the one resource. And when I say resources, like I've said before on here, physical, mental, emotional, social, spiritual, financial, there are so many. But time is a resource, and it's a thing we can't get back. We can get more money if we lose it. We can get back in shape if we get out of shape. We can recover from deep emotion. If we get really sad or we get really mad, we can recover from that. But we're never getting back any more time. That's just not going to happen. So yeah, time's a big deal.
respect people's time, do the best you can to get everyone or as many as you can at least to buy in. You're never going to get everybody, right? No matter what you do.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can't. Yeah, you're never going to guarantee that everybody's going to enjoy what you're going to do, and I would. That's why I would say, it's not so much about which event am I going to do. It's more keeping in mind the intent. The intent is for people to understand each other, to trust each other, to believe in each other. Okay, well, what does that take? One of the biggest constructs that really predicts how well a team does and how well they function is psychological safety. And what psychological safety is just a sense that if I speak up, I'm not going to be penalized for it. That if I make a mistake, no anvil is going to drop on my head. I can speak my mind. I can express how I think about things and my perspective without there being any sort of animosity coming from any side. That's psychological safety, where everybody knows that they're in it together, where everybody's, that the perspective is that everybody's contributing. Even if I disagree and disagree vehemently with what you have to say, I give you the principle of charity is at work. I believe that you're saying it because you think it's the right thing. And so I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt. And we're going to have some discussions, and I will, in a respectful way, let you know why you're wrong. And you can do the same thing. But that's psychological safety, where we know that we can go into these conversations and we're not going to be harmed physically, mentally, emotionally, or even socially. We're not going to be ostracized because of what we've said or our perspective on different things. So when psychological safety is present, people are much more willing to say what they think. If a proposal comes down and somebody's, they say, all right, well, what are the problems that anybody sees with it? Anybody see any holes? And I can look at it and say, yeah, I see about 5 or 6 different points of failure right there. And I'm not going to say any of them, because as soon as I do, one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to yell at me and tell me I'm wrong, or you're going to say, great eyes, go fix them. And I'm
Uh,
not interested in either one of those. So with psychological safety, it creates that freedom for people to really lean in and voice their concerns in a way that they're not afraid. They're just not afraid.
what you have any recommendations on how to increase the feeling of psychological safety? And obviously, it's more than just feeling; it's almost tangible, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, the biggest way is to make it part of the values. It's just one of those things that just goes without saying. It becomes not necessarily a plaque on the wall that has all the values that everybody lives by, but even beyond that, it becomes a moray. It becomes an unspoken just way we do things around here. It becomes so embedded within the culture that nobody even needs to talk about it anymore, because when that principle of psychological safety is violated, it just sends a red flag up all across the everywhere, and it gets fixed real fast. So that's the best way. So how do you get there? Well, again, that comes down to identifying psychological safety is what we want. What does that look like in the world? And everybody's in a different world and everybody has different things. So I don't know. I can't tell you how that looks in your world, but you got to figure out what it looks like so that you know when it's not happening and you can redirect. I mean, in terms of psychological safety, that's one of the biggest things. But from a leadership standpoint in general, to piggyback off of that, from a leader standpoint, very clear guidance around what is important, what do we care about, what matters in terms of values, in terms of outcomes, whatever. Just being very clear about that. Who's responsible for what? If I'm the leader of a team, tell me that. And these are my responsibilities. And so that clarity can go a long way. Demonstrating authentic care. This is another big one. When leaders are seen as authentic, when they show vulnerability, appropriate vulnerability for the workplace, but they demonstrate vulnerability. They're willing to admit mistakes. They're willing to say, yes, I screwed up. I was wrong. When you have leaders who emulate what it is that you want to achieve on a cultural level, that's really, I mean, that's a big part. Openness around what they're doing, sharing the problems that they've had and struggles along the way, big deal.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean that's I'll stop there. There are a few more, but the
Oh,
leadership piece is really where, because that's who's usually in charge of putting this stuff together, or at least from the standpoint of, hey, I want you to put this thing together for the team.
yeah, it's their idea and somebody else is probably putting it together, but exactly same end result. Yeah. Yeah. Any other tips on avoiding these big pitfalls that everybody just leaves feeling worse than when they got there to begin with?
Well, I mean, for the events themselves, like I said, I think that specifics around what you choose to do matters less than the overall intent and the values that you want embodied along the way. So whatever event it is there psychological safety there? Have people chosen to be there? Is there a shared, like, for example, when I say that the clarity piece is so important of what are our goals, where are we going, how are we trying to get there? When everybody's on the same page about that, then when these events come up, it can be tied to one of those things. Like, "Hey, here's what we're doing to move us closer to, or move us forward with, or here's the value and benefit of what's happening right now." Because if people, if they, and this goes with anything, if people understand their role, their contribution, why they're doing what they're doing, and they really truly see that that contribution is part of the larger good, those people will go to the mat for you. And again, this is something I saw all the time in the Army. I mean, some of these guys, their job was to sweep the the what they call it, the place where all the vehicles are and stuff. They had to clean up the motor pool. That's what it was. There was a lot of motor pool cleaning that was happening. And it's not a glamorous job, and it's by definition it's a messy job, but it's an important job. And when that importance gets tied to, look, that sometimes we get a call and we got to roll out fast. And if we roll out fast, we need to roll out with some stuff that works, because if it doesn't work and it's clean, we can't get out as quickly as we could, bad things can happen. And here are some examples. Maybe you've seen some of them, maybe you haven't, but I've experienced them as the leader. We've been here, so I'm just letting you know what you are doing truly does matter in this sense. So as much as us as leaders can connect what people do to that larger picture and really have them understand that it's so valuable, it's so important, that brings the team cohesion part in as well. And then, so the same thing with these events. If you're going to have an event, or you're going to, and again, we keep talking about events, this team cohesion happens over time. It's
Right.
not okay, we've got bad team cohesion, so let's see what place we can go to and what thing we can do to make that better. That is the wrong way of thinking about it. It's the other way around. The
Yeah.
team has to come together, has to work together, has to figure each other's dynamics out around these shared goals and values. And if that happens, trust starts to build. And when trust starts to build, then so do those relationships that sometimes, but not always, go beyond the workplace. So So that's something to again keep in mind you can save yourself a lot of time and money with these events by not having them and just putting more attention and energy into the day to day. How are we creating groups? How are we creating teams? How are we providing feedback to these teams? Are we sure that everybody's operating with the same goal, same objective, same value system in mind and is bought into it, understands the importance of it?
All right. So what I'm hearing you say is we're going to plan a family picnic for next Sunday. That sounds great, Brian. Thank you.
That sounds perfect. Make sure you bring footballs so that everybody can play in the group football game because you can't sit out of that.
And
Gotta
hopefully
all
it's
be there.
another heat index of 110. Really, really great stuff. The psychological safety in particular at the core of it. And you're right, building those relationships day in and day out is truly what it's all about. And just trying to get as much buy-in as you can.
Yeah,
So,
it is not about the big event. You're not going to change the world with one event. It's not going to create teamwork. It's just not. It works the other way. I mean, it's the little things that all put together will create what it is that you're trying to achieve with these bigger events. Now, does that mean that some people in your organization wouldn't enjoy a free trip to Top Golf and play whatever? I'm sure that they would, and that's a wonderful thing if you want to offer that up. That's terrific. But as far as team building, team strengthening, team cohesion, probably not going to get a whole lot of that.
absolutely. All right. So, Nashville, 911 Nashville, the thing you're doing now, it back in the fall, I assume?
Yeah, I assume it hasn't. It's a brand new show. It hasn't ever aired. I'm assuming it seems to be on the old school schedule of these, and I say that because with all the streaming stuff, you never know how
Sure.
many episodes are going or when they're going. But this one seems to be on the old school schedule of start shooting in the summer, start airing in the fall, stop shooting around March, stop airing again in June, do some
Uh-huh.
reruns for a little bit until the fall. Like this one seems to be on that trajectory.
All right. We will certainly watch for that. Anything else that you're involved in that's just really cool and worth mentioning?
Well, two other movies just came out earlier this month. Superman, I'm in that, which unless you're me, you won't know where I am in that one at all because I was so in the background that I mean, I had a good time watching myself when I was at the theater, but nobody else would know it was me. The other movie is called Sovereign, and it was a lower budget movie. It was Nick Offerman who was starring in that one. I doubled him for this, and there wasn't a lot of stuff in it, but it was an interesting movie. It's an interesting story. It's based on a true story, and so I encourage people to check that one out too, especially if you're a Nick Offerman fan. He did a fantastic job, and he was playing a role that's not a normal role that you typically see Nick Offerman in. It was a really good performance by him.
And if I'm not mistaken, Nick has some ties here in Northern Illinois, maybe from the
Oh yeah, he told me about that. He went to was it University of Chicago? Did he go? He went somewhere. He went to school somewhere up here and did studied theater in the Chicago area. Yeah.
thinking maybe from the Morris Minooka area to drill down even a little further.
Hmm.
So anyway,
All right.
good stuff. We'll certainly watch for you. And again, I'll take this opportunity to advocate the book Begin Again. If you're looking for some just little daily insight, and like me, and just read a chapter or two at a time or a day, Begin Again, a terrific place to go. And that's available wherever fine books are sold, right?
I I believe it is. Yeah, unless you're actually walking around in a bookstore, because then it's not. But if you go online and you look for books wherever you look for them, you will likely find that one.
All right. Doctor, always enjoyable. We appreciate your time and be safe. We'll watch for you on 911 Nashville this fall.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me again. Always enjoy the discussion.
You can find other podcasts with Brian and other guests. We do have them from time to time. Just go to nciworks.org. You'll find everything else work related for North Central Illinois there too.